The 7 reasons why your bad habits keep winning are: you're not serious enough about changing, you're focused on effects instead of causes, the cues are going over your head, you're not being specific enough, your bad habits are too attractive, your bad habits are too easy, and your values aren't leading your behaviours. Instead, you're relying on willpower in order to defeat urges, which is exactly why once a week you find yourself scrapping, fapping, scrolling, eating junk food, or doing your bad habits when you told yourself, never again. Started off a bit harsh, haven't we? Why aren't you wearing any trousers? Because you're wearing them. Fair enough. Yes, we have started off harsh, because about a week ago I was in the exact same position you might be in now. Fed up with continuously falling into my bad habits, desperate to find a way to stop doing them forever. So, about 9 o'clock in the evening, 5 days ago, I was laying my head there, unable to sleep, so I stood up and did a 1-hour board session, and that is when I came up with these 7 reasons why. So let's get into them now and reverse them so you can escape bad habit hell. But if you've only got 30 seconds, then here's the bottom line of this whole video. Just re-engineer your life by strategizing an answer to this question and you'll be golden. How can I make my value-led activities easier and more attractive while making my bad habits, i.e. the draining and shallow activities, harder and less attractive? Answer that question and you'll be fine. But if you want a further explanation, then continue watching this video. But warning, we're going to begin with a harsh truth. Point number 1 is you're not serious enough about changing, and this is the harsh truth of the day. If you were really serious about quitting this bad habit, you would have done so by now, and you wouldn't tolerate any strategy that doesn't work. Feels like a slap around the face, doesn't it? Yeah, well, that's how it felt for me at least a week ago when I realised this. In the words of Naval Ravikant's spiritual advisor, Kapil Gupta, where's the quote? Oh yeah, there it is. If you do not desire something in the depth of your bones, you will have... messed up. If you do not desire something in the depth of your bones, you will have an endless tolerance for failure. If you do desire something in the depth of your bones, you will have little tolerance for failure. And once the prescriptions fail, as they always do, you will be forced to find your own way. So long as unseriousness thrives, that was hard to say, prescriptions will as well. A human who deftly desires something would never stand for a practice that continually failed to provide him that thing. So think about it. Do you actually want to change? And do you... stood up too quick. Do you actually want to step into the responsibility of a new way of being? And you might be thinking, yeah, of course, both those are my answers to those questions, but genuinely think about it. If you quit this bad habit, that means you're no longer going to be able to rely on it as an excuse to do or not do things. And you're going to have to become a new person. If you're still not sure whether you want to make this change, then use this model. What's it called? The stages of change model. You got the first stage, pre-contemplation. Then you got contemplation. Then you got preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. Here's another visual of it, of some bloke trying to quit eating junk food to illustrate it a little bit further. But in order to pinpoint where you are on this model, here are 3 questions that you can ask yourself. Are you seriously considering trying to overcome this bad habit within the next 6 months? Yes or no? Are you planning to try and overcome this bad habit within the next 30 days? Yes or no? And are you actively involved in trying to overcome this bad habit right now? Yes or no? Take all of your answers, whack them in this table, and you'll find out what stage you're in. If you answered no, no, no to these questions, you're in the pre-contemplation stage. Essentially, you're not admitting that you need to change. If you answered yes, no, no, then you're in the contemplation stage. You're sizing up what change would look like for you. If you answered yes, yes, no, then you're in the preparation stage. Okay, I've admitted I need to change. Let's see what we can do. And if you answered yes, 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 you've prepared for it. Now it's time to take action. Moving on, what's the second reason why your bad habits keep winning? The second reason why your bad habits keep winning is because you're focused on effects instead of causes. In the words of David R. Hawkins, the author of Power versus Force, The Hidden Determinants of Human Behaviour, society constantly expends its efforts to correct effects instead of causes, which is one reason why the evolution of human consciousness proceeds so slowly. If you've watched any other content about habit formation or watched any of my other videos about how to set, good habits and break bad ones, then you would have heard this point a billion times before, but it's worth mentioning 1,000,001 times because it's so true. Your bad habits are not the problem. They are attempts from you to try and meet an unmet need of yours in a moment of vulnerability. And until you meet this unmet need in a new way, with a new response, and thus forming a new habit, you will continue to do your bad habit. In other words, your brain did not evolve to watch porn, smoke, eat junk food, or scroll on social media. It evolved to bond, relieve stress, satiate, and rest and connect. So you can run around like a headless chicken all you want trying to quit your bad habits, and you can do so with time restrictions, accountability partners, or any other technique you think might work. But if you're going to continue to try and deal with the effect of the problem, which is the symptom, the bad habit, you're continuously diverting your attention away from the actual cause of this problem, which is your unmet need. Let me say that one more time and be really annoying and condescending. The bad habit isn't the problem. The unmet need of yours is the problem. And because it's a problem, your bad habits are serving the purpose of soothing you from the discomfort of this need not being met, or it's trying to help you artificially meet this need in a way that is a detriment to your future. So, where does this leave us? I got distracted because there was a noise outside. In order to figure out what the unmet need of yours is that this bad habit is trying to artificially meet, you need to figure out what cues are triggering this behaviour in the first place, which highlights the third reason why your bad habits keep winning. The third reason why your bad habits keep winning is because the cues are going over your head. A cue is something you feel or see that causes you to act. They're the catalyst for a habit to form, with the 4 stages being cue, craving, response, reward. If you've read the book Atomic Habits, that will sound familiar. And we're going to unpack that in a second. But another way of saying cue is trigger, in the words of Nir Eyal in his book Indistractable. And a trigger can either be internal, again, something you feel, or external, again, something that you see. For example, a quick example of how an external cue would be the catalyst for you to perform a habit would be you see your phone lying in your bedroom or just around your house. And because you associate using or seeing your phone with using YouTube, you then begin craving the action of opening up YouTube and scrolling. Note, this is where dopamine is going to be released the most because you're in anticipation of doing something. Dopamine always wants you to move towards something, hence it's responsible for the craving. Then you respond by, of course, acting upon that dopamine release and moving towards your phone. You pick it up and you open YouTube. And the reward is, well, you feel good. An internal trigger, however, would be the catalyst for you performing an action within an example like this. First of all, you don't see anything in your environment because, of course, it's an internal trigger. Instead, you might feel bored, lonely, stressed, or tired. But let's stick with the example of you feel bored. Then you start to crave the sensation of not feeling bored because boredom is an uncomfortable experience, so you want to move away from it. Dopamine begins to be released. Then that dopamine encourages you to respond by seeking out your phone, trying to remember where you put it, and opening up YouTube. The reward is, well, now you don't feel bored anymore. Regardless of whether scrolling on social media or YouTube is a habit you want to stop, let's do an annoying, uncomfortable, quick exercise of introspection. And seeing as we've just covered this, have a quick think as to how you've ended up here today. You know, you're watching YouTube now, whether it's through a phone, laptop, or a TV. Think back to 5, 10 or 30 or an hour, 30 minutes or an hour ago when you wasn't using YouTube. What encouraged you to open the app? Was it an internal trigger or was it an external one? Have a little think. But what this highlights is, in order to quit your bad habits, there are pretty much 4 things that you need to do. And this brings us to the most important part of this whole video. So if you only get one takeaway from this video, make sure it's this. Ready? Okay. In order to quit any bad habit, you first of all become crystal clear on all of your internal and external triggers. Then you get rid of your external triggers as best as you can. Then you highlight exactly what need your internal triggers want you to fulfill. And then finally, you outline exactly how you're going to respond to that trigger in a healthier way. Then you do that again and again and again until you form a new habit. Someone's getting hammered. But good news. Getting clear on these 4 steps only takes about 5 minutes to do. And in order to do so, I'm going to need you to grab a pen and a piece of paper and fill out the following table. I know, exercises are annoying, but if you do this, you'll be able to quit your bad habit. So, draw out the following table. Now, let's fill out the first column. In the first column, all you're going to do is write down all of the internal triggers you think are causing you to do this bad habit you want to quit. Don't worry about external triggers for now, we'll cover them later. In order to help you think about these triggers, consider this. Think back to a previous time you relapsed, maybe the last time you relapsed, and consider what happened before you engaged in that bad habit. What did you want? What did you need? Or what uncomfortable feeling was you trying to avoid? For example, if I filled out the table for me, which by the way is going to give you insight into my mind and my life, lol. Boredom, loneliness, stress and fatigue. A quick note here, I guarantee your triggers will be very similar to the column that you can see in front of you. But it's still worth asking yourself the questions just in case there's any others that aren't included here. And second of all, now you've highlighted your internal triggers, in the middle column, try and uncover what that trigger wants you to do. Treat it as if it's a character that you're negotiating with and think about it logically. Why would you feel bored, lonely, stressed or fatigued? What type of action would that trigger want you to perform next? And if you could speak to this trigger, what might it want you to do? By the way, if we're moving too quickly, feel free to pause this exercise and, fill it out as we're going through. Here's what my column, middle one, looked like. Quick note here, why is filling out this middle column important? Well, it's important because your triggers are not the bad guys. I know they seem like the annoying ones in this bad habit equation and they're the ones responsible for you doing this bad habit, but they're not the bad guys. You need to listen to what they want. And I know, I'll hold my hands up, in this video we've been using language such as quit your bad habits, defeat your bad habits, beat your bad habits, but you're not beating anything. I've used that vocabulary purposefully in order for you to understand and be drawn into the topic, but at the end of the day we're not beating anything. We're simply replacing how you're currently trying to meet a need or soothe yourself from the discomfort of a need not being met, and we're trying to reprogram or program a healthier response to meeting that need. So triggers aren't the bad guys, okay? Now finally, in the third column, and to complete your table, you strategize new ways to respond to this trigger to meet its need with a healthier response. Note, in my third column, NSDR means non-sleep deep rest. It's basically where you have a nap for 20 minutes, and it's amazing. I do it every day around 5 p.m. But before you fill out your third column, there's one thing you need to note which will make or break your progress in quitting this bad habit, which highlights the fourth reason why your bad habits keep winning. The fourth reason why your bad habits keep winning is because you're not being specific enough. To bring the table back up on screen again, did you notice that some of the new responses I put in my third column weren't specific enough? For example, just leave the house, NSDR, or breathwork. You see, new responses like these are great because you have the right intention of wanting to replace the old habit with a new one, but they're not going to serve you in moments of temptation when an urge arises because they're just not helpful for your brain to follow. So, let's get specific. Use this sentence and put these new behaviours into your third column. When I feel trigger, I will go to place and I will new behaviour. For example, when I feel lonely, I will go into my room, change my clothes and go to the Costa Coffee around the corner and order a drink. When I feel bored, I will go to my bookshelf, get my Kindle, lay down on the floor and read a new or current book. When I feel stressed, I will stop what I'm doing, go to my bedroom floor and do 3 rounds of breath work. When I feel tired, I will stop what I'm doing and take a 20-minute NSDR on the sofa. Then I'll cook a colourful, nutritious meal in my kitchen. When, where, what? Whack those new responses into your third column. Feel free to pause the video now and do so. And now let's finalise this video with the final 3 ways, or final 3 reasons, sorry, your bad habits keep winning. The 5th reason why your bad habits keep winning is because your bad habits are too attractive. Now we're moving away from the cue stage of the 4 stages of habit formation and we're focusing on the craving part here. And in order to re-engineer the craving part, you just need to make your bad habit unattractive. And in order to do so, there are 3 things that you can do, which amalgamate into one thing. First of all, write down your bad habit on the top of a flashcard, double-sided piece of paper like this. And write down all the consequences of doing this bad habit below that title. Think in as much detail as you possibly can about all of the gruesome, horrible, detailed consequences this bad habit is currently having on your life and will continue to have on your life if you continue to do it. Bonus points if you think about the negative effects it's having on other people in your life as well. Now the reason why you want to do that is because in a moment of impulse and urge or craving, the reason why you relapse into this bad habit is because older brain regions have overridden your prefrontal cortex and are plunging you into the present moment. Your prefrontal cortex is one of the latest developed brain regions in the evolution of our brain, and it's responsible for decision making, rational thought, thinking about the future and regulating the older regions of our brain. But the tricky thing is with all of the brain regions is when you're in a moment of stress or discomfort or fatigue, your prefrontal cortex is the first brain region to go offline, so it's less likely to regulate your other brain regions. However, you can prevent this problem happening in the first place by becoming really clear on all of the consequences. So even in a moment of prefrontal cortex depletion, you can still read something like this and remember, this is all of the consequences these other brain regions don't want to think about. Let me get my prefrontal cortex back online. Then after you do that, on the flip side of the flashcard, you write down your new responses that you filled out in that table on the back. To give you 2 examples of these, a few weeks ago I was really struggling with the bad habit of scrolling on YouTube on my phone that I used to record videos. Now this was a problem for me because on my laptop, I'll show you quickly, I don't have, if I go onto YouTube, no thumbnails show. I have to genuinely think about what video I want to watch, but on my phone it's the complete opposite. Everything gets suggested to me. So I was falling into doom scrolling rabbit holes. So I wrote down, scrolling on YouTube. Doing this is going to damage my mental health, which contradicts my main value. It will expose me to the desires of others and it will make me depressed, hate myself, lonely and depleted. This is not worth it. There are better ways to meet this need, and then I've got my tables on the back. When I was dealing with the bad habits of watching porn as well, I would have wrote down something like this. Doing this is going to hypersexualize my brain and destroy the intimacy I can have with my wife. It is going to make me a nervous wreck around women. It's going to make me feel diminished and skyrocket my social anxiety and guilt. It's reinforcing a habit I want to change, damaging my brain and zapping my confidence. This is not worth it. There are better ways to meet this need. And I need to put the table on the back. It's always good. Even if you think you've conquered a habit, it's good to do this because it keeps you diligent in moments of future potential temptation. So yes, what's next? Oh, yeah, quick note here. as we're moving on to the final 2 points. The next time you're likely going to engage in this bad habit again. But what you might want to do, depending on what the bad habit is purposefully engage in the bad habit, right? But try and be as mindful of the experience as possible. Bring mindfulness as a tool into your experience of this bad habit, and you'll likely notice that you don't actually like doing this bad habit in the first place. The reason why you do it is just to escape the uncomfortable sensation of craving and wanting. Think about it like this. The reason why you keep relapsing is because you're carrying around a heavy rock all day, which is craving and thinking about and trying to not do this thing. So doing this thing is like, just letting down that heavy rock. But if you pay attention to the experience of letting down that heavy rock and allowing yourself to do this bad habit, I guarantee you'll notice you don't actually like doing it. Pay attention to what it's like to eat that junk food, to watch that pornography or scroll. Bring your awareness and you'll find that you'll start naturally drifting from this bad habit. Give it a go. Final 2 points. The second to last reason your bad habits keep winning is because your bad habits are too easy. Now moving into the response stage of the habit formation process. So the key thing you need to do here is make your bad habits as hard as possible to do. Now, I have to be honest, in a lot of my videos I do talk crap about app blockers, time restrictions and accountability partners, only because if you're relying on those things instead of dealing with the actual root cause of this bad habit, which is, addressing the cause, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. But they do work when it comes to making the bad habit hard to do. So if your bad habit is eating junk food, always remember you can't eat an ice cream you don't have. I was on the phone with my dad last night and he was talking about how he's been struggling with eating too many biscuits. And I said, look Dad, you can't eat a biscuit you don't have. He was like, yeah, it's a very good point. Always remember that when it comes to scrolling. See what you can implement into your laptop or phone in order to put more restrictions between you and the apps that you're struggling with using too much. Other examples, get rid of your alcohol, your cigarettes. Try and get rid of this stuff as best as you possibly can. A quick mindset shift here. Look around your room. I've said this in another video, but to repeat it again, look around your room and your immediate environment and see every single object in your room as a call for your attention. Is that a positive call or a negative call? Because the reason why that is important is because the people who you see, whether it's online or in your day-to-day life, who have extreme discipline, don't rely on defeating urges whenever they arise. They simply engineer their environment so that doing the right thing is as easy and as attractive as possible, whereas doing the detrimental thing is as unattractive and as hard to do as possible. So get rid of your external cues as best as you possibly can. But if you can't, for whatever reason, because that cue is baked into your environment, maybe you work somewhere where the temptation arises or you live with other people, then here is something that is going to help you overcome this. Which leads us in to the final reason why your bad habits keep winning. The final reason why your bad habits keep winning is because your values aren't leading your behaviours. And in order to explain this point, I'm going to get slightly vulnerable, if you don't mind. When I was 17, I had huge problems with watching porn. PMO, as we call it, porn, masturbation, orgasm. I started that habit when I was God knows how old, 14, 15 maybe, due to my exposure of the internet at a young age, as most people have experienced nowadays from my generation. And for the life of me, I just couldn't quit it. I had no idea how to quit that bad habit. It was the most horrible addiction, compulsive behavior that I'd ever experienced, because every time I did it, I felt horrible, I felt dirty, I felt guilty, and the energy I was bringing to life was just off. I couldn't look women in the face. It was, and if you go to a mixed school, that's just a recipe for disaster. But when I turned 18, I finally quit. And for the next 3 years, I went completely PMO clean from the ages of 18 to 21. And I largely achieved that by keeping myself busy. You know, I was traveling, I was in a relationship at the time, I was doing new jobs, everything, I was on self-improvement, everything was busy. But then when I was 21, I ended that relationship and decided to return to the UK because I needed more money and I wanted to change what I was doing in my career. So I found myself back at square one in my mum's house, and I was experiencing a crisis of meaning, identity, and an existential crisis. And in order to soothe me from that discomfort, the bad habit of PMO crept back up again because I felt stressed and I wanted something to soothe me. So again, feeling like I was back at square one, I was now 22 at the time, I was just fed up of engaging in this bad habit again and having all of the negative effects. So one day, it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, completely fed up, I went for a really long bike ride and started speaking to myself out loud. And I realised that I couldn't keep myself busy anymore like I did before because I wasn't in a position to go travelling again. So I had to work around this bad habit by going inwards, and I realised that PMO was in direct violation of my values. And then it clicked. I realised I didn't need to continue to do something that was in direct violation of my values. Suddenly, I wasn't just chastising myself for being a complete loser for engaging in this horrible habit that I didn't want in my life. I was distracted from it in the most positive sense by being pulled in the direction of my values. So this is the last point I really want to communicate to you here. And I've mentioned this in other videos, but I had to put it in here. If you're not clear on what your values are, you're going to continue to rationalize doing this bad habit. Because if you don't realise that your values are having good mental health, discipline, playfulness, having a flourishing social life, then when it comes to scrolling, eating junk food or doing things in violation of those values, you'll just say, meh, they're not that bad, I don't really care. And you're not going to have your conscience on your side. So, what you need to do is 2 things I'm going to suggest. First of all, write down a list of words or concepts that you find important. And then second of all, you need to rank them. And within that list, you will find your values, which are essentially about 3 things. Who do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? And what impact do you want to have on others? And to emphasize the point one more time, the reason why this is important is because we can't just focus on punishing yourself. You have to give yourself something positive to move towards instead of moving backwards into the slippery slope of your bad habits. What this looked like for me is this. The words that stuck out as most important for me were playfulness, stillness, connection, clear thinking, curiosity, courage, love, discipline, and vulnerability. But when it came to ranking all of these, I realised I could combine them all into one core value, which was flourishing mental health. And then it clicked again. All of the other things I find important are downstream from this major value. So me personally, I only have one value. But if you're doing this exercise and you find you have 3 or 4, remember, rank them. Because having a priority, you can't have more than one priority. That just doesn't exist. You have to have one value as the top priority. Why? Well, because if you have to make a decision that could potentially contradict some of your values, you have to have one value at the top which is guiding you making that decision. For example, if I have the value of flourishing mental health and family, but I don't know which one is more important to me, and then my family ask me to do something that I think could violate my mental health, what decision am I going to make? If both are as important than each other, then I'm going to struggle to make that decision. But if mental health is more important to me than family, then I'm going to be able to make that decision a lot easier. And the final thing to mention here is, you know, we hear a lot in the self-development world about purpose and success, this is it. This is all you need to do for the rest of your life. Live in line with your values at every single moment and every single day. And you'll realise on your deathbed, if you have one, or as you take your final breath and then exit this world, if you have lived in line with your values, then that was a life well lived. This is all you need to do. Meme? Hell yeah. So, in summary, the 7 reasons why your bad habits keep winning are: number 1, you're not serious enough about changing. 2, you're focused on effects instead of causes. 3, the cues are going over your head. 4, you're not being specific enough. 5, your bad habits are too attractive. 6, your bad habits are too easy. And number 7, your values aren't leading your behaviour. So the only question you need to answer to make all of this stick is, how can I make the value-led activities easier and more attractive while making the training and shallow activities harder and less attractive? Thank you very much for your time and attention. Stay disciplined, playful, dangerous. Can I have my trousers back, please? Yeah, go on then. Thanks. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.